The obsidian walls of the conclave hall shimmered with reflected light, casting the gathered krill into long, distorted shadows. A low thrum, the symphony of the crystalline energy matrix, vibrated through the floor and up into Thuron's mandibles. He felt the tremor, a physical manifestation of the unease that had settled over the chamber like a shroud. The Grand Architect, Kael'thas, his carapace gleaming with an oily sheen, was the first to speak, his voice a gravelly echo amplified by the hall's acoustics. The scans are inconclusive. The anomaly remains. It continues to expand, consuming everything within its reach. And the humans, they are silent. Silence descended then, thick and suffocating. Thuron, a strategist of the Krill Dominion, shifted uneasily, the weight of his battle harness a familiar burden, now compounded by the dread that coiled in his gut. The humans! Even the name, so devoid of the guttural clicks and hisses that defined Krill's speech, seemed to hum with an alien quality. They had arrived, a blip on the galactic map, a species of bipedal creatures from the far reaches of the Orion Spur, possessing a crude technology that belied an unnerving capacity for rapid advancement. They had been observed, studied, cautiously engaged. Now they were gone. And the thing they had warned them about, the threat that had cast a long shadow over Krill history, it was still there, a festering wound in the fabric of reality. The Grand Architect, his multiple eyes flickering with agitation, turned towards the holographic projection that dominated the center of the hall. The projection shimmered, resolving into a star chart depicting a swirling vortex of energy, a chaotic maelstrom devouring entire star systems. This was the anomaly, the source of their deepest fears. Once a small, localized disturbance, it now pulsed with a malignant energy, its boundaries expanding inexorably, its hunger seemingly insatiable. It was a threat that had haunted the Krill for millennia, whispered in hushed tones around dying fires, encoded in the ancient runes that adorned their ancestral homeworlds. Their departure, it is suspicious, the High Seer, Valera, rasped, her voice frail with age and the constant burden of her visions. The seers of the Krill were the custodians of their history, able to glimpse the past and, with varying degrees of clarity, the future. Their pronouncements were rarely optimistic, their insights often chilling. I see no conflict, no battle, only silence. And then the thing. Thuron's mandibles clicked sharply. He had served in the Dominion's military for over a century, seen countless battles, witnessed the rise and fall of empires. He understood the nuances of strategy, the ebb and flow of conflict. But this felt different. The humans, with their unsettling calm, their inscrutable motivations, their quiet efficiency, they had always been an enigma. Their technology, while primitive compared to the Krill, possessed a disconcerting adaptability, a relentless drive for innovation. They had built ships that defied the established principles of physics, weapons that bypassed their most advanced defensive systems. Yet they had never engaged in outright aggression. They had always observed, analyzed, and then withdrawn. The Krill had initially underestimated them, of course. Who wouldn't? They were a young species, barely scratching the surface of interstellar travel. But the humans had revealed themselves to be an enigma that was harder to decipher. They were not easily provoked. They responded with cold, calculated logic even when faced with perceived threats. Their ships were never deployed in large numbers, yet they could hold their own against overwhelming odds. They were, in a word, unsettling. And now they were gone. The humans knew of the anomaly, the Grand Architect stated, his voice laced with suspicion. We informed them of the threat, of the dangers it posed. They studied our data, analyzed our warnings, and then they left. Is this coincidence or something more sinister? They had access to the forbidden texts, Valera whispered, her gaze fixed on the swirling vortex in the holographic projection. They saw the prophecies, they knew the fate of the star systems consumed, they knew the price of defiance. Thuron felt a chill creep up his spine. The forbidden texts were the Krill's most guarded secrets, ancient scrolls that chronicled the rise and fall of civilizations, detailing the horrors that awaited those who dared to confront the anomaly. Accessing these texts was forbidden, a practice reserved only for the High Seers. And yet the humans, in their insatiable curiosity, had somehow managed to gain access. Their motives were unknown. Perhaps they believed they could control it, suggested Zalara, the chief diplomat, a Krill known for her patience and her ability to navigate the treacherous currents of galactic politics. Perhaps they saw an opportunity for advancement, or perhaps they simply didn't care. The room erupted in a chorus of clicks and hisses, a wave of outrage and disbelief washing over the assembled Krill. The idea that any species, even the enigmatic humans, would willingly court such a cataclysmic threat was unthinkable. The anomaly was not a force to be trifled with. It was an entity of pure chaos, capable of consuming entire galaxies. "We must act," Thuron declared, his voice cutting through the din. "We must assess the situation, determine the intentions of the humans, and formulate a strategy to contain the anomaly." He gestured toward the War Council. "Our fleets must be prepared for deployment. We need to analyze the data on human technology. We must know the truth." "But what if they are not our enemies?" Zalera asked, her voice calm despite the urgency. "What if they were simply unprepared? What if they knew the nature of the anomaly and sought to escape its grasp?" Thuron scoffed. "Unprepared, they possess technology that allows them to traverse the galaxy. They are capable of building weapons of unimaginable power. They have mastered the art of deceit. They are far from unprepared. They are simply different." The debate raged on, a torrent of suspicion, fear, and uncertainty that filled the conclave hall. The Krill, a species known for their stoicism and their unwavering dedication to order, were adrift in a sea of doubt. The humans, their silent departure, had thrown the entire Dominion into chaos. They had released the thing they warned them about, and no one knew why. Days turned into weeks. Krill scientists worked tirelessly, poring over the data provided by the human ships. Military strategists pored over flight paths, communications intercepts, every fragment of information they had. The anomaly continued to grow, its tendrils of energy stretching out into the void, consuming star systems and galaxies. Fear permeated every aspect of Krill life, the dread a constant, gnawing presence. Then came the message. It arrived as a cold burst of electromagnetic radiation, a signal that bypassed their most advanced encryption protocols. It was a single, simple message, translated from the human language. "The device is active. Containment protocols initiated." Confusion swept through the Krill Council. What device? Containment protocols? What did any of this mean? The High Seers, their faces etched with a mixture of terror and bewilderment, scrambled for answers. Thuron, his heart pounding in his chest, ordered the immediate deployment of a reconnaissance fleet to the coordinates specified in the message. He needed to understand what was happening, to know if the humans were allies, enemies, or something else entirely. The reconnaissance fleet, comprised of advanced Krill cruisers and fighters, jumped into the designated coordinates. They arrived to find the system bathed in an eerie, otherworldly glow. The anomaly, now significantly larger, pulsed with chaotic energy, threatening to swallow the entire sector. But there was something else. A complex structure unlike anything the Krill had ever seen was taking shape at the very edge of the anomaly's reach. It was an intricate web of interlocking modules, its surface shimmering with an unknown material. It was a device of incomprehensible scale, and at its center, a human vessel, its hull marked with the symbols of the departing species. The Krill fleet cautiously approached the structure, their sensors working overtime to decipher its purpose. They detected no active weapons, no signs of aggression, only a strange, almost hypnotic energy signature emanating from the vessel and the device. Then a signal. It was a transmission this time beamed directly to the Krill fleet. A human voice, clear and concise, filled their comms channels. The translation system struggled for a moment, then adapted, the words flowing with surprising fluency. "This is the United Earth Defense Initiative," the human voice stated. "We have initiated Project Aegis. The device you observe is a containment field. Its purpose is to stabilize and neutralize the anomaly. We have deployed it at great cost, both in resources and in lives. We are now departing." The Krill fleet remained frozen, processing the information. Containment field, neutralize the anomaly. The sheer scale of the undertaking, the audacity of the humans' plan was almost incomprehensible. This was not the act of a species seeking conquest or even survival. This was an act of sacrifice. "Explain," Thuron finally commanded, his voice strained. "Explain the meaning of your words. Explain the purpose of this device." The human voice responded, its tone unwavering. "The anomaly is not a natural phenomenon. It is an artifact of a long-dead civilization, a weapon designed to unravel the fabric of space-time. We discovered its origins in your texts, as you know. We understood the threat it posed, not only to your species, but to the entire galaxy. We determined that the only way to contain it was to build this field. It is a one-way system. Once it is activated, it will consume the anomaly, but the containment field, along with the device, the ship, and everything within its reach will be destroyed." The implications of the humans' revelation crashed over the Krill fleet like a tidal wave. They were going to sacrifice themselves. They were going to build a device to contain a threat, and they would be destroyed alongside it. This was something the Krill did not understand. In their long history, every action was for the preservation of their race. This human act was beyond their scope of understanding. Thuron felt a surge of something he had not felt in a long time. It was an emotion that had been dormant for decades. This was respect. He began to understand why the humans had been so inscrutable. Their actions were not driven by greed or fear. They were guided by a deeper sense of duty, a commitment to a greater good. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you do this? Why would you sacrifice yourselves for a species you barely knew?" There was a moment of silence. Then the human voice answered, its tone calm and resolute. "Because it is the right thing to do. Because the survival of the galaxy is more important than the survival of any single species. We knew the risk. We accepted the consequences. We are simply fulfilling our duty." And then the human vessel vanished, its image replaced with a burst of blinding light. The containment field flared to life, its energy signature intensifying. The anomaly shuddered, its chaotic tendrils recoiling from the encroaching field. The Krill fleet watched in stunned silence as the field slowly, inexorably, consumed the anomaly, along with the remnants of the human vessel. The device hummed with power, and the human's fate was sealed. In the conclave hall, the news of the human sacrifice rippled through the Krill dominion like a shockwave. The initial disbelief was quickly replaced by a profound sense of awe. The humans, the species they had underestimated, the ones they had feared, had chosen to sacrifice themselves to save the galaxy. The Grand Architect, his multiple eyes wide with a strange mix of disbelief and awe, turned to Thuron. They were different, unlike anything we have ever encountered. The High Seer, Valara, her voice trembling, echoed the sentiment. They saw the darkness and they chose to fight it. They knew the price and they paid it. They are the heroes we never knew we needed. The chief diplomat, Zalara, added, "They understood the nature of unity. They understood that all species of the galaxy were connected, even if they didn't realize it. They are the epitome of ethics." Thuron stood tall, his gaze fixed on the holographic projection, which now displayed a vast, empty expanse of space, the anomaly forever contained. He felt a pang of sorrow, a sense of loss for a species he had barely understood. Yet he also felt a sense of hope, a belief in the inherent goodness of the universe. "They departed silently," he said, his voice low but firm. "They did not boast or gloat. They did not seek glory or reward. They simply did what had to be done. We must learn from their example. We must understand that true strength lies not in conquest, but in sacrifice. Humanity, in their final moments, showed us something important about ourselves, about all of us." Days turned into weeks, and the Krill began to rebuild, to reevaluate their place in the galaxy. They began to embrace the values of unity and cooperation. They studied human technology, understanding its application and its inherent flaws. They studied human history and the lessons it provided. They learned of the human species' history, its rise from a primitive world, its struggles, its triumphs, its unwavering belief in the power of hope. Then a new message arrived, a faint signal picked up from the far reaches of space. It was not a call for war, nor a plea for help. It was a message of peace, a beacon of hope, a signal that changed the course of Krill history. It was a message from the humans. The message had been encoded within the structure of a previously unknown energy signature, one that had been lost for centuries. Once they unlocked the code, the message began to translate, revealing a story the Krill never expected. The message told of a civilization that had been consumed by a cosmic force, an ancient species that had attempted to conquer the universe and failed. The Krill knew this ancient civilization. They were the ones who created the anomaly. The message also spoke of a legacy, a hidden cache of technology and knowledge left behind by the humans, a testament to their unwavering spirit and their commitment to the greater good. It was a secret weapon, a secret means of protecting the galaxy. The Krill now understood the humans' true intentions. They were not just an interstellar force. They were guardians, protectors, a sentinel for all spacefaring civilizations. The Krill Council convened once again, this time with a different sense of purpose. They had a new mission, a new understanding of their role in the galaxy. They had learned a great lesson, one that would change their species forever. "We underestimated them," Thuron said, his voice laced with regret. "We saw them as a threat, but they were actually our salvation. We assumed they were like us, like all the other civilizations we had encountered, driven by greed and conquest. But they were different. They were driven by duty, by a profound sense of responsibility to protect the innocent. They were guided by ethics, and they were, at their core, good. The humans were not the ones who released the thing," Zalara corrected, her eyes glistening. "They were the ones who tried to stop it by sacrificing themselves. This is the truth we must never forget. The device is not completely destroyed," the Grand Architect announced, his voice filled with newfound optimism. "The message has revealed a failsafe, a way to reactivate the containment field. We can rebuild, restore it, and use it to defend against future threats." The Krill, for the first time in their long history, were united not by fear but by hope. They had been given a second chance, a chance to learn from the mistakes of the past, a chance to build a better future. They set about rebuilding the containment field, dedicating themselves to protecting the galaxy from the darkness. As the Krill began to work, they realized that the message held a second secret. The message was not meant for them alone. The message was designed to be sent to anyone who found it. The humans had not only been prepared to sacrifice themselves, but they had prepared for the eventuality of another threat. And now, the Krill were not alone. The galaxy was not alone. The implications of this revelation were staggering. The humans, even in their death, were still protecting the galaxy, preparing it for the future. The message had been encoded to be sent out to any and all civilizations in the galaxy. Every star system, every planet. It was a call to arms for every species. The humans had understood the truth. All life was connected. And now the Krill understood it too. They began to contact other civilizations, passing on the message, the knowledge, and the instructions to rebuild the defense system. Thuron found himself standing in the conclave hall, gazing at the holographic projection of the empty space. But this time he wasn't afraid. He felt no dread. Instead, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "They departed silently," he murmured, "but their legacy will echo through the cosmos. They released the thing we warned them about, but they also saved us all." He turned to the High Seer. "What do your visions reveal, Valera? What do you see in the future?" Valera closed her eyes, her frail body trembling. After a long moment, she opened them and gazed at him, her eyes filled with a serenity that had eluded her for centuries. "I see a galaxy united, a galaxy of many species, working together, guided by the ethics of those who departed. I see the threat of the darkness, but I also see the light. Light of humanity, shining like a beacon in the void, forever reminding us of the power of sacrifice, the importance of duty, and the enduring strength of the human spirit." The future was uncertain. The galaxy still faced many dangers, but for the first time in a long time, the Krill were not alone. They had allies in every civilization, and the humans, though gone, were with them still. They had left behind more than just a device. They had left behind a promise, a covenant, a legacy of hope. They had released the thing, yes, but they had also released something else. They had released humanity, and humanity was eternal.